Yo guys, it's Tuna. I wanted to put this video out because a lot of people have been asking me how to craft axes, and we've had a lot of changes to the Recombinator this league, where I had the introduction of the Path of Exile 2 Recombinator, as well as our retention of somewhat similar Recombinator as we had last league, which was changed in many ways. The primary thing that you need to worry about is that the Recombinator now no longer really benefits you, benefits from crafting multi-mods as well as exclusive modifiers and things like that. So I will not go too much in depth about how the Recombinator works because I gotta be totally honest with you. I still don't understand it, and I think the community as a whole really doesn't quite understand it. There was a really nice long write-up on a Reddit today, which gave us a little bit more context as to how it works and his tests with the Recombinator standard, where he was able to, put a lot more currency and attempts into seeing how exactly it worked. If you guys want to, read that, I will link that in the description. So big shout out to him for providing a lot of really valuable information to the community and to, of course, me and everyone else included. Like, he's doing a great service to all of us. Instead of, obviously blasting, making currency in League, he's doing the tests for us and also doing massive and very in-depth write-ups for us to sort of digest and understand and improve our gameplay. So that's very big. But that's enough waffling. How do you craft an axe? There's two ways to craft an axe, and there are sort of like different ways in which you'd maybe want to craft an axe. There's a crit craft and there's a non-crit craft. I will go specifically in this video more in depth on the non-crit craft and talk about how that works. So step one of the process would be to, of course, pick up a lot of item bases. It's a Recombinator after all. What you're going to need is you're going to need a lot of item bases. I have a regex here, and this regex basically is showing everything above T3%, everything above T3 hybrid, and flaring. Flaring being a T1 flat. So you can see here that I have a bunch of them that I've rolled, like T3%, T3 flat, and yeah, you will get a bunch of these bases, and what you have to do from here basically is just throw them together, right? Essentially. What you're going to try to do is you're going to try to get two prefixes on your axe. The two prefixes you want are going to be hybrid percent with flat. The reason you do that is because we have access to the Veiled Orb. So as you can see here, the Veiled Orb is currently about 3 divines, 420, yeah, about 420 Chaos Orbs. it's quite expensive, but for right reason, right? So let me show you guys real quick. So if you get two axes, one with hybrid percent and one with flat, and you put them together, you have a 20% or something like that. I don't want to give percentages out because I don't know exactly how it works to merge those two modifiers together. So just to give you an example, with percent here, I would grab percent and I would grab flat. But in this example, you would do it with hybrid, of course. You grab percent, you grab flat, and you make sure that you click it to where the button is lit up like this. And all you're really trying to do is you're trying to brute force the chance of merging percent with flat. Ideally, you want to be starting with hybrid and flat. You can see in this case, I deleted one of them. So what I would do is I would send it again. And I know this all seems quite obvious, but there is a few other tricks that you can do for doing, like better crafts and that sort of stuff. So at this point, like, it doesn't need to be rare or anything like that. You don't need to craft prefixes, nothing like that. And you just keep brute forcing until you have your base with both flat as well as hybrid. Unfortunately, it costs like a lot of gold. And the way that you mitigate the gold cost is by crafting like garbage affixes. Like if I was here to craft like low tier garbage dexterity, it would increase the odds. Though be mindful that you don't want to craft a prefix, as prefixes and suffixes are supposed to be rolled independently, but not 100% sure if that's the case anymore again. But again, you will just try to recomb until you have the two together. So I'll send it again. And yeah, I didn't hit it. But, you know, you gotta persevere. You gotta persevere until you hit it. Now, unfortunately, this craft is, like, not easy. But once you have this, you're pretty much done, right? At this point, everything is going to be deterministic. And I will show you guys exactly where to get from here to the end of the craft in Craft of Exile. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. This is the important stuff that you need to pay attention to. Everything before this was just to sort of show you guys what the process is, like how to brute force two mods together with the old Recombinator. And here I'm going to be giving a lot more context to the nitty gritty, the step-by-step and that kind of stuff. So first of all, you need to get a Vol Axe. This is just the best base for us slammers. It's just by far the most damage and the most attack speed that you can get. Don't care about the quality because honestly using like high quality bases with this Recombinator is just a death wish. Like you never want to do that unless you're trying to do mirror tier crafting. And as I said, you want to be merging flaring, which is going to be T1 flat. T1 flat, as you can see here. You're going to want to be merging this with T1 hybrid, which is called Dictator. But of course, this Dictator modifier is extremely difficult to hand roll. Like this is going to take thousands of alterations to roll. So I would settle for literally anything above T3. Like T3 and above, you're happy. The difference between T1 and T3 is basically like 13% extra physical damage, which in the grand scheme of things, you know, like it doesn't really matter all that much. Like it is a lot of damage, of course, but obviously it's going to be the big difference between the costs. And this is where you need to use your cost adversiveness, I believe that's the word. You know, figure out like how much money do you have to spend on this? Do you want to go for T1 or do you not? And you will just go back to like alt spamming and putting a lot of bases aside, as you can see that I've put here. And eventually, you know, you'll have a bunch of flarings and you hopefully have a bunch of hybrids and hopefully have a bunch of percents. But for this example, we're not going to use percent fizz. And the reason for that is like we're now at a point where we have used the Recombinator. We've gotten lucky and we've merged these two mods together. And as you saw just now at the beginning of the video, it is not guaranteed to merge these mods. So if you did roll T1%, be prepared to feel really bad when it doesn't merge and you just wasted 2000 alterations. But when it does merge, you have like already, like when you have this step, you're done basically. All you have to do now is just guarantee the affixes on the item, which are pretty much all deterministic aside for the very last step. But I'm assuming that like if you have a bunch of suffixes on your axe, you will have just a bunch of crap, right? Like strength or whatever else, right? I think attributes can't really roll here anymore. Maybe I'm incorrect. I think actually resistance is only. So imagine like you recomb your two things together and this is what you have. What you do from here is you want to do prefixes cannot be changed because you need to clean your item. This is important, but you don't necessarily have to clean your item if there's only one modifier on it. So if you have only strength here, you're good to proceed to the next step. But if you did have actually more than one suffix, imagine if I had like these two suffixes, you do not want to proceed. If you have two suffixes on your item, you need to scour down to this. You need to do that because the next step is going to be using a Veiled Exalted Orb. And Veiled Exalted Orbs, they have a chance to roll the prefix or the suffix. And it's a 50% chance for each. Meaning if it does remove like the craft, right? If there is a scenario where it removes a craft, it's a 1 in 3, like this. And now you have basically bricked your item. And you have to go for an annulment orb in hopes of removing a suffix. And in this case, we get lucky, but in a bad case, you remove your hybrid. So make absolutely sure that if you have one modifier, you can proceed. But if you have two modifiers, clean the suffixes and then proceed. So what you would do, in this case, prefixes cannot be changed, and then click a Veiled Orb. And you're hoping for the 50-50 to hit the prefix. The prefix is going to be the long line. So if you hit a suffix, unfortunately, what you do is if you hit a suffix, unfortunately, you have to scour and go again. In this case, I was lucky because I retained the prefixes cannot be changed craft. But in a case like where you do use a Veiled Exalted Orb and it removes strength and not the craft, it removes the craft and not strength, sorry. this is where you have to craft. Prefixes cannot be changed again. And by the way, this is expensive. Like prefixes cannot be changed to two divines every time. Like crafting this is pretty expensive, but yeah. So prefixes can be changed, and then you go again, and you craft prefixes can be changed again. So that's 4 divines, and then you send it again until you hit a prefix, right? And like in this case, we hit a prefix. So now that you have a prefix, you're almost there, right? You're almost there. So at this point, you want to unveil, and it's going to be guaranteeing fizz. This is 100% guaranteed. You're always going to be hitting fizz. But it doesn't really matter whether you hit like the bleeding, the poison, or whichever one. The poison can be good for people that are using Yoke of Suffering, because yeah, it allows you to, of course, inflict poisons. But yeah, it doesn't really matter here. So at this point, you already have a pretty badass axe. Like that's a lot of damage on this. But we want to finish the suffixes. And the way that we finish the suffixes, the safe way to do this would be to craft prefixes cannot be changed. And then augment speed. And this is going to be guaranteeing attack speed. The tier is not guaranteed, of course, but it will be guaranteeing a tier of attack speed. And on my second one, I got T1 attack speed. The problem, though, is that the alternative is much cheaper. Reforges, right? You're gonna be getting a lot more out of your money using Reforge speed instead. But Reforge speed doesn't guarantee to not fill your suffixes. So there is a 1 in 11 chance to fill your suffixes, which I will show you guys something tragic. This is what happened to me when I reforged. Classic. But yeah, so you have to also like here figure out like, do you want to risk it, or do you want to like, you know, go for GG? And the third option actually that I forgot to mention is you can just multi-mod from this step. If you get your 3 prefixes, you can just multi-mod attack speed and attack speed while a rare is nearby and just be done with it, right? But if you did want to proceed to have like kind of a GG axe, then you would proceed to do exactly as I said here. Augment attack speed, and you would settle for like basically like T3 or above is pretty good. And now that you have attack speed, you're basically done. Now you ask Chris Wilson for good RNG, because there's, I think, something like if I was correct, it feels like there's like more than a 50% chance to slam what you want. I didn't look at all of the modifiers, but this is actually a bad outcome. It's a 4.75% chance to slam additional projectiles, so that's absolutely abysmal. But what you want to do is you want to slam either this, which is an 11% chance or 12% chance, or this, which is another 12% chance. Maim and increase physical damage, and this is going to increase your damage even further. And now like you basically got like a bazooka. This is a gun, and at this point you craft attack speed, which is going to be the veiled modifier right here. Boom. Attack speed while a rare or unique enemy is nearby, and you have pretty much best in slot axe at this point. So yeah, this axe is insane, and you should be pretty much done and happy. But there are other ways to craft it, and I will go through the crafting process just very quickly in case you ever wanted to make a perfect triple prefix craft. So to make a triple prefix craft, it's much more complicated as you'd imagine. What you want to do is you want to be grabbing or buying bases from the market, like this, for example, but that it has a percent like tyrannical, hybrid, or whatever else, right? So you grab these bases, and then you want to try isolate that modifier. The way that you isolate a modifier, as you can see here, I have another base that has a hybrid T3 and flaring as well. That's kind of cool. But anyways, you wanna isolate this modifier. So this is again where all of these axe bases will come in handy. This is one of the good ones. Make sure I'm not deleting that, because what you can do is you can scour it down. You can craft dexterity on it. Well, I craft dexterity. You can craft any very low tier modifier, right? So in my case, I craft dexterity. I'll put them in, and I will go to PoE 2 mode. No, I don't. Don't leave. I know I said the word, but the PoE 2 recomb is actually pretty decent in this case, because as you can see, and by the way, this is kind of funny, but if I was to roll like a shittier roll here for dexterity, the percent goes up. So the closer you are to 15, the better, actually. You can see that it's kind of troll, honestly. But you can see it was like 40% chance, and it's still a 44. Wait, I'm actually confused then. Maybe it's the quality that makes it go up. Anyways, it's a bit confusing. Usually it sits at around 50 to 52%. But yeah, we have a 50% chance now to basically take this modifier and put it on a clean base. And I hope this works so I don't delete more bases for the purpose of this example. A quick jump cut, and wow, you have your isolated percent fizz. But pretend this is a vol axe. All right, pretend with me, boys. So now, like, you have this axe, and then what you're gonna try to do is you're gonna try to do the same thing, but for flaring and hybrid and all that kind of stuff. So at this point now, you would try to make an axe that looks like this. So you will try to merge percent with flat or percent with hybrid or whatever else, and ideally on your Val axe base. Now the reason why this is on a headsman axe base is because, like, you can kind of cheese having to roll your bases by having a good trade search. I'm not going to be giving you guys the trade links because I think if you're at this level of crafting, you should be able to make your own, and also like the market will get completely braked. But you can make a specific trade search to either look for like something like Merciless, right? If I was to look for Merciless, I have to put count 1. So if I was to look for Merciless, you can see that now, and also, by the way, you have to type Merciless, but the not accuracy, because otherwise you get Merciless and hybrid together. So then here you go, like these are all Merciless bases, and you can see they're like 20C. So you wonder to yourself, like, is 20C worth my time rolling for it? But it also adds like a layer of RNG to where like you have to now transfer this modifier over to a desired base, aka the Val axe base. But in some situations, what you will end up having is it'll retain the base that you bought it on, and yeah, and then you might get to a stage later where you're kind of like, you have an item like this. But this is still fine because this still has a chance to choose our Val axe base here. But the way that you would do this is you then now have a you have one with flat and percent, and then you have one with flat and hybrid. So the goal here now is to try to merge these two in hopes of getting T1 flat, T1 percent, and T1 hybrid. We want to have one modifier that is shared across both of the weapons. So in this case, I chose flaring because it's the most common. And so I will have like the most attempts at doing that. And we're also gambling on it choosing the Val axe base instead. There's a lot of layers of RNG to this, and you would then put it into the old recomb, the PoE 1 recomb, and you're just sending it at hoping that it merges your prefix. I'm not going to click recombine this time because I actually need these bases for later, or when I get a better when I get better bases and stuff. But that is pretty much how you craft axes currently in the game with the information that we have. And this was already a long enough video, and I hope this video has kind of like shed a bit of light on how to craft it and what to do. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope it was instructive and helpful. And big shout out to the guy on Reddit for giving us all the info. So thanks guys, see you next time.